newcomers, come on in, help yourself with some food, have a seat. All right. So for those of you who I haven't met yet, my name is Margo. I'm the Director of Institute for Integrative Health, and it's great to see everybody here. This is, I think, 2 or 3 months since our last symposium, so it's always great to get together about these really fascinating topics of conversation, and we're really lucky to have today to have Margo Apostolos with us. Margo and I met back before there was an IIH, when I was kind of just networking and knocking on doors on the University Park campus for people in the humanities and other fields that might be interested in their field and its relation to health and how that might be linked to our efforts, to really develop a transdisciplinary and trans-school institute that would incorporate anything really that has to do with health in human health and well-being. So Margo comes from the School of Dance. Our last seminar was from an artist, so you can see that we are really trying to build up those bridges with the humanities. And I think the idea of dance medicine, which is what Margo is going to speak to us about is fascinating. So the setup in the room is a little weird. Everyone's pretty far out here, but we do have a dance floor, maybe for after if we have a little time. But at any rate, Margo, thank you for coming from the other campus, and we really look forward to hearing about dance medicine.
Thank you so much, Mark, and thank you, Q, for... I'm going to be, I hope we can get everything done by 12:45. We do have to empty the room, and I have to get back to University Park campus for another meeting. And the parking was a challenge this morning, that's all I'll say. So I'm probably going to take me 15 minutes to get back to my car. But anyways, I'm so glad to be here to see. I know some people in the room, and I'm very excited, really excited about integrative medicine. Since it first came on my radar, I just thought, wow. And when I finish giving my dance medicine little PowerPoint, I'd like to hear from you, because I do think for healthcare and where we are going, I do feel this is the time and place for integrative medicine to really come to the forefront, because there's so many options and patient education and really getting patients involved. The dance medicine, I'll give you the little backstory. I did my PhD at Stanford back in the 80s and was studying dance and physical education, so I do have a Bachelor of Science from Southern Illinois University in physical education with a dance minor. I have a master's in dance from Northwestern, and then a PhD was in dance, which was housed in physical education, but I minored in philosophy, so I'm just very interdisciplinary in my thinking, which I think is fun. It's the way to do it. But it was when I was at Stanford, I was on scholarship, I had elective units, I had finished all my coursework, and they said you can take some elective courses. And I took sports medicine, and this would have been circa 1980, 82, 83, I can't remember exactly, but it was at the Stanford Medical Center on campus, adjacent to the campus. And a professor, Dr. Spivak, Al Spivak, taught sports medicine. And I found it really interesting because as a physical education dance person, I was always really into sport. I've always straddled both sides. My book, by the way, will be coming out beginning of next year, Dance for Sport. I'm finally writing, Oxford University Press is publishing the book. So I have always been working with athletes and dancers in dance. So sports medicine seemed like, yeah, I get it. And then one particular day, we had a guest speaker from the San Francisco Ballet. And it was Dr. James Garrick. And he had just opened a dance medicine center, and it was the first on the West Coast, because Bill Hamilton, of course, had his center in New York with the Harkness Ballet. But James Garrick opened this in San Francisco. And I remember thinking, wow, shoulda, coulda, woulda, what am I doing with a PhD? If I had known about this, I would have gone for an MD in dance medicine. I didn't know it existed. But, deep into the program, deep into debt, you can't make those kind of changes. So I just wrote it out and finished, landed my job at USC right after Stanford. So I have been at USC, okay, let's keep it in the house here, 30 years. I came in 1986, and I came as director of dance, and we were in the physical education program back then. And in '88, we moved over to then the Division of Drama, which was part of cinema and television, which later became the School of Theater, which later became Dramatic Arts. And 3 years ago, of course, the wonderful Gloria Kaufman, our donor, has provided the opportunity for us at USC to now have a school of dance. So it's great. But the dance medicine program, the Dance Medicine Center, and it's almost like a mea culpa here. I always, every time I come to this campus, I have to ask for forgiveness that I started the original Dance Medicine Center at Cedars-Sinai Medical Center. And if Carmen's around, I'll hide under here. But we have been pretty much on hold over there because I am really trying to jumpstart dance medicine over here with our new Kaufman School. I'm working with the Engelman Health Center. I'm working with Dr. Lieberman, Dr. Gamran, and Dr. Tan. And this afternoon I'm meeting with Dr. Sean Johnson, the head of PT on the main campus. So what started at Cedars in '87, and it was, if you've been here a while, I'll qualify. This was when this campus was under the tenant rules. So there were a lot of reasons. The person I partnered with was someone who had come out of San Francisco, Dr. Glenn Pfeffer. I don't know if any of you know him. He's foot and ankle, and he was very passionate about dance. He had seed money at Cedars. We met through a parent of one of my students, and it was just the perfect match to get it going. And I'm really glad we did, because we sort of put dance medicine on the map here in LA, and I think it's the perfect time now to move forward. So on with the talk. And dance, of course, is an art. These are two of my former dancers who have gone on to, they're still performing. They're about the point in their career. They're in their late 20s, ready to start their own school. I think probably somewhere in Arcadia. They've won numerous contests. And this was an award-winning photo. The big difference when working with athletes and dancers is that dance is an art. And of course, we do have competitions. I said that they won a competition, but those competitions generally have subjective judging on it. There's not time, distance, boundaries, so it's not rule-based, so to speak. The ballet world is a little different. There are ballet compulsory competitions. The Ballet Grand Prix is almost parallel to the combine of football, one might say. The Grand Prix ballet, the Ballet Grand Prix, is where the ballet dancers go to see what company will choose them and select them. But dance is also performance, different. Okay, football, sport is performance as well, but there is the artistry involved in what we do. And needless to say, this is one of their favorite moves. I don't know if anybody wants to demonstrate this for me. The reason I'm leaning on the podium, last night I was the guest coach at the I'll be guest coach tonight at the UCLA game, and after practice last night, I decided to jump on the court and shoot hoops. Not a good idea. So just saying. So when you see me limping out of here, every bone in my body, if I didn't have to go back, I would do some PT here. But so some of the moves that are going on now, the dance world has changed too. I was actually teaching dance as an art form, and we were looking at some old footage of, different dance, from the 40s and the 50s and all of that, and it was really exciting and fun. But we've moved on now into really kind of daring, acrobatic, aerial work. The injuries that we were seeing at Cedars-Sinai were things you'd never imagined would be coming out of a dance rehearsal. The most significant one that I can recall, and the patient has come forward. She's even put it on her Facebook, because she's fortunately totally recovered. But she was a dancer with Taylor Swift, and they were performing in Nashville. And she fell from a hoop 20 feet up over the stage. And it was a compound fracture of her lower leg, both tibia and fibula, and multiple fractures in her foot and ankle. She was set and plates and pinned in ER in Nashville, flown back, and came to Cedars. I did not think, she was 33 years old at the time, and when the doctor told me, I'm a PhD, so I don't do medical, but over there, I was the liaison between the dancer, the doctor, the dancer, the therapist. So I was the voice of the dance. So he showed me her x-ray, and all I saw was the hardware at the foot and ankle, at that articular joint, and I thought, knowing the kind of work they do, I said, you know, she'll probably walk, you know, she's young enough, she can recover, but I can't see how she could ever dance again to really get up in that high demi point on even, you know, I don't mean on point shoes, but up in that, you know, high releve position. And I have to credit physical therapy, because it was almost 2 years of physical therapy. And she totally recovered. And she got her job. Actually, her first show, that once she got released after 2 years, she went to Australia to perform with Queen. And it was just, I'm sorry, not Queen, Kiss. She was with Kiss. And she sent me a picture of her at that first night on stage, and it was just incredible. And she's, you know, performing here in town. She's teaching aerial work, but we've seen numerous injuries coming down out of the air. So the choreography now, and I think the younger dancers are more daring, because they see things and they just want to try them. I've had students just trying this. Now, obviously, in this particular move, and it doesn't really have a name that we're aware of. We have called it, at that time, we were trying to figure it out, you know, break it down with a kind of a biomechanical analysis, how one would do it. And we called it the Trojan toe drop, you know, because all the dancers in the rep company were doing this. But, you know, it's extremely, it demands extreme kinesthetic awareness, strength in, you know, foot, hips, legs, quadriceps, and so on. And so those who do it well and can do it without injury. By the way, once they take that down to the floor, and then the really good ones are able to come back out of it in that. Just push up out of it. I'll not demonstrate today, just because of last night. We never do. We are seeing, I think this is probably nothing new to anybody in the room. And I, as a PhD, not an MD, some of the Cedars doctors educated me. I thought hypermobility was something that dancers and gymnasts strive for and just, you know, they just acquired. And I was informed, no, that it is a hereditary condition, that they can be born with more hypermobile joints. I'm teaching our new BFA dancers. We have our first class at USC Kaufman. And they brag, they show off their hypermobility. And I'm like, no, don't do it. You know, I try to teach, I have a lot of mottos, and one is that flexibility without strength is worthless. So I try to have them building strength around the joint capsules and not demonstrating all this hypermobility and just kind of showing off something that, in the dance world, this is really positive. And they will hyperextend for a better aesthetic. I asked one of the male dancers, why are you doing this? This was Tuesday night in class. And he said, well, it just looks better on stage. Which comes to my next slogan, which is, what is aesthetically pleasing is not always anatomically correct. And this is what I've been saying that for years, and the dance world just, you know, yeah, but we'll do it anyway. The student knew better. I'm teaching dance science now. They understand the fundamental anatomy, but yet they will demonstrate because it looks better. So here's that parallel that I talked about. The dancers, it's really interesting now that we have the Kaufman School. Because everybody in the dance world wants to talk the talk. we're athletes, you know, ever since Misty Copeland, you know, came out in that wonderful Under Armour ad, and everybody's, yes, we're athletes too, you know, but they don't train like athletes, because I've worked with athletes. And that's what I'm hoping that maybe the professionals, all of you professionals in this room will understand. It's really the training and the mindset that is so different in treating a dancer and treating an athlete. So, as I mentioned, it's so much about the aesthetic in the performance. Athletes, too, are finely tuned instruments, but if any of you treat a dancer, I guarantee you'll have to book probably a half hour into your exam period because they're going to be talking about themselves so much and everything, and they'll want to show you everything they can do, even though they're injured. You know, they just love to show and demonstrate. So it's just part of the showmanship of the art itself. And just for a basic understanding, I don't know, you may know this already, but just kind of for a little bit of clarity, there are many different forms of dance, and at Kaufman, we are training what we call the hybrid dancer. And the hybrid dancer, does various forms. Now, because one of the chapters in my book, and I know you're all looking at me because I'm kind of looking that way too, one of the chapters in my book on Dance for Sports is about sports specificity. And you all know that at the elite level, one works at one sport. And I even say in my book, you will not find a generalist at the elite level of sport because everybody's specializing. You've got the quarterback. I mean, I just saw him yesterday before the practice last night, Adoree Jackson, our wonderful football player, who's also a potential Olympian in Rio on track and field, does long jump. So I've had numerous track and field athletes that I can remember in the past 30 years that have crossed over to football at the collegiate level. There are obviously certain sports that you wouldn't see that kind, we don't have anybody on the football team who is also on the swim team. So there's certain sports that just wouldn't seem to blend. But track and football, yeah, that kind of goes along with it. Football, John Elway played baseball, signed with the New York Yankees before he ended up in Denver. Because I remember him from Stanford, he was there then. And so we do see some of that crossover, some of that hybrid at that level. But when you really get really deeply invested in an elite physical activity, it is very much specificity. But because dance, a lot of these styles have fused now. There's a fusion that's occurred. So ballet, anybody studied ballet in here? Okay, classical, contemporary. Classical. Because there's a difference now. There's a difference. Yesterday, 2-hour lecture just on the differences of classical ballet and contemporary ballet. Didn't know that, did you? No. So contemporary ballet is part of the fusion, where there are different things going on. I'll talk a little bit about the footwear, too. So ballet, you still have a lot of dance-specific, classically trained ballerinas. These are the people on point, trained on point, want to perform on point, and that's all they want to do, and they're going to do it well. And they're going to be principal dancers at the ABT, at the Joffrey, and so on. So that is their dance. Jazz has taken a huge twist. There are many different styles of jazz that even kind of include musical theater. We see a lot of it in there. But jazz dance itself, and when I was a jazz dancer back in Chicago, jazz and contemporary, or we called it modern in the old days. Now the people are more used to saying contemporary dance, which is more expressive. But back in Chicago in the day, this would be like in the late 60s and 70s and 80s, even when I came out to California, I was still doing jazz. I felt jazz was very good for your body. That we were doing a lot of things. It wasn't just all turned out, I'll talk about ballet positions that put you kind of at risk, but jazz, and it was so free-flowing. I think now with the acrobatics that's been introduced to both contemporary and jazz, there is a new element of risk that's involved. Because people are, the expression might be throwing tricks in the air that they're not, a lot of injuries coming from that. I was a gymnast in college as well, and I coached gymnastics for many years. And when I am teaching my advanced dancers, at USC on main campus, and we are rehearsing. If they're doing anything aerial, I pull out the mats, and we have to have 2 spotters. But I guarantee in most dance studios, professional and otherwise, you'll see kids and people just throwing, oh, I think I'll try a handspring, crash, kaboom, you know. So they try things with kind of reckless abandon to what they're doing and not knowing. So I'm saying for the state and the advancement of the art, let's go ahead, let's incorporate the aerial work. Let's do the acrobatics, but we've got to teach it. So you professionals in the room, please be prepared for those kind of traumatic injuries that maybe were not coming from dance, such as the compound fracture I just told you about. Hip hop has become a very, do you have any hip hop dancers in here? Oh, I thought you were raising your hand. Yeah, hip hop is, you know, this is a whole new form. We've got some incredible new hip hop teachers. It's come out of street training. A lot of the hip hop dancers, the great dancers, the crews, so to speak, are not really technically trained. Many are not. Now there is a movement within dance to really have training. And as a matter of fact, at Kaufman, with what is a hybrid dancer, the BFA dancers have ballet, classical ballet at 8 o'clock in the morning, and at 9:30 they have a hip hop class. And my task, I taught dance conditioning last semester, my task as the conditioning science person in our school was to try to find a way to get the dancers to be able to transition from point, and not, everybody was not on point, but from classical ballet to hip hop. And what I found, because I don't do hip hop, I mean it's not for an old body, I'll tell you that, and it's not for everybody. But it is, puts the body at a whole different dynamic, a whole different level, with a whole different quality of movement. There's a lot of percussive actions to it. Actions flow in a different way, and many of the moves are discovered. There's a lot of creativity going on in hip hop. So the first thing I did with the dancers, when they stepped away from the ballet world, they have 10 minutes break, I told them they had to psychologically begin. They had to start here to know that they were transforming now into an entirely different form of dance. And then we could begin. And I did work a lot with the lower body, because the feet going from this point position in hip hop is a lot into flexion on that. The body weight, instead of being up in hip hop, is very much down. I can't bend my knees very well, but all the way down on that. So ballroom is still a very popular form that we teach, and the trained dancer will be knowing all of these forms. Tap, any tappers? Because I love to see, like, there's always a tap troupe that comes around of people who are former dancers and they're about 85 years old, and they still look fabulous, and they're tapping and they're doing a show, the Follies or something like that, and it's just great, because tap has a whole different body carriage on it. Folk and ethnic dance, and we did see over at Cedars, we did see a lot of people doing both folk. I was not prepared. I thought at Cedars-Sinai we were just going to be seeing ballet, jazz, and contemporary, boom. And then we were, for a while, we were the doctor team for Dancing with the Stars, so we did see a lot of the ballroom people at that time. But folk and ethnic is very popular everywhere and in this town, and just to differentiate, folk dances are specific dances of a specific country, generally done with a very specific song and with exact steps. So an example I give is like the Kordabushka is a folk dance of Russia, and you have to have the Kordabushka music, and you use that formation and the exact steps. So if you're a teacher, it's quite easy to teach. It's sort of like a roadmap. Ethnic dances are countries of a region. The dances of the Maoris, shall we say, you know, in that region of the world. So we see more regional dances in ethnic styles. And then, of course, musical theater is very popular. And we see primarily musical theater, tap, jazz. I mean, you just see, it depends on what the show is. Hip hop, they're doing hip hop musical theater. I put some show on Broadway right now.
Hamilton.
What is it? Hamilton. Hamilton. Yeah, I've got to see that. So here's our hybrid dancer. And this is the new movement, so you'll probably see it on our website. And the new movement is something we're really going out to create. We're trying to say that these pre-professional dancers are going to be doing various styles, which is kind of really going out on a limb. And as I say, to me, the most important thing, anatomically, physiologically, mechanically, are the transitions. And it is a different psychological mindset, too, to the different forms of dance. The footwear. And I didn't bring my dance shoes, but if you are treating dancers, I guarantee they're going to have a bag about this big they walk in with. Because you're always, my dance bag's in the car, even though I'm still not, you can't leave the house without your dance bag. And in your bag, you will have multiple shoes. And if you're a point dancer, a dancer on point, they'll probably have 3 or 4 pairs of point shoes. And jazz dance, and now what's really peculiar, I asked the class, because I find this a safety issue, and I saw it coming, you know, being in the studio for 30 years, I have seen all the trends, even bought some stock with different clothing companies that I thought the dancers were going to invest in, but they didn't, you know. But they're wearing socks now. And for the longest time, I prohibited socks on the dance floor because they were slippery and that people would just fall. And I just noticed with this new BFA group, they're all wearing socks. And I asked them last week, I said, well, let me just add, I thought maybe it was hygiene, because we've run into, I'll talk more about other issues that we've had, infectious diseases in the dance world. I call it dance's dirty little secret. But, so they're wearing the socks now, and they're performing. I mean, these are expert performers, and I don't dance inside. I still teach, and I wear a flexible jazz Oxford, no support whatsoever, no support whatsoever. And just a split sole with a thin rubber that gives you just enough resilience. It's kind of smooth, so you wouldn't dance in a running shoe. I would tell some of the non-major students if they didn't want to spend $50 on a pair of dance shoes for one semester, I'd say, do you have a pair of tennis shoes that are worn down? So you want to have a little bit of rubber, but not too sticky. You wouldn't dance in shoes with like a trail shoe with a lot of ridges in it that would make you so stable if you turned you would blow your knee out. So the footwear is a real issue, and it's very sensitive and very personal to every dancer. There was a trend, and some people my dancers were like, oh, we don't wear those anymore. They're called dance paws. And dance paws are elastic across the top. I can't really bend, but it goes between your toes, and it just goes over the ball of your foot. So when you're turning, you have a little bit of something to turn on, and you're not just going to be sticking or getting blisters. In my day, as a modern dancer back then, we did dance barefooted, and we developed calluses. Calluses were a real, you know, wow, I made it, look at my calluses. We were so proud of the calluses on our feet, because we didn't need paws, we had paws, you know. And, but now the dance paws were popular, but according to my students, they've been, and the reason they wear the socks, because I asked them last week, they can also show their own creativity by colors and things like that. I mean, also it's like a lot less expensive than buying a $50 or $60 or $80 shoe, I guess. I don't know, but the footwear for if you're treating a dancer, you have to ask them immediately, do you wear shoes? What do you wear? Let me see them. And like I say, be prepared. When we're rehearsing, you know, we try to have them rehearsing in the same footwear that they are performing in, which isn't always the case. They might be performing in their socks, and then when they go on stage, they're going to have to wear shoes for the number they're in. So, you know, trying to keep things as constant as possible is a challenge. Surfaces. We have just laid down in our new, if you've been on our campus, our new building is going up, and we are going to be having, I think most of the studios have what we call a Marley floor, M-A-R-L-E-Y. And it is kind of a rubberized flooring that rolls out, tapes down, and you see it in most theaters. It's sort of the standard Every dancer, professional dancer, expects to be dancing on a Marley. If there's not a Marley on the stage, I've seen just tantrums being thrown. So, you know, most places have Marley. In the studio we're using right now in PED on campus, we have put down a Marley for the first time. I was teaching on wood for 28 years, and now we finally have Marley that's been laid, which is a lot easier. And it also gives the dancers a constant surface. We're rehearsing on Marley, and when we go on stage, it's the same thing. As opposed to we're rehearsing on a slippery wood, and now we're going to go, so you have to like redo everything on that. So the floor is very specific. Costumes. And when I worked with LA Opera, costumes for opera dancers, far different because the opera costumes are much heavier. Even in musical theater, if they don't have the right costume designer, the costumes may not be designed for dance and may be causing excess weight and not allow for the freedom of movement that they need to have. So the costuming is a big part of it, and you certainly don't want to think that the costume would be causing an injury in any way. Now here's where it all begins. If you're speaking with the dancer, and when I trained physical therapists, and even the dance doctors over at Cedars took dance class with me, believe it or not. You picture a bunch of orthopedic doctors, orthopedic surgeons, that's it. I won't give you their names, but they were there in my class. So I put them through this. So the dancer, and this comes from ballet, we turn out at the hip. We open the hip, and I don't have to go into the anatomy, you all know. But that is a very common position. We do dance parallel, and in jazz and contemporary, we'll even turn the hip in. But if you say to a dancer, turn, and as a matter of fact, you can usually tell a dancer because they'll almost always stand turned out. And for the very little children, we tell the parents, don't let them constantly walk turn out. The doctors will tell them to let them get out of that posture. So they're just constantly wanting to be turned out. So turnout is very much, coming from classical ballet, is utilized throughout all of dance. Every dancer will know what turnout is. Are you turned out or are you not turned out? It's a question they ask. You don't have to explain it. First position would be with feet together. Second position, wider base of support. Third position, heel to the instep of the rear leg. Weight is supported on both feet. I'll go to fifth, which slides up. Heel is to the base of the large toe, which is a tighter position, a little more, more difficult to work at this position. But the position that troubles me most is fourth, because fourth position is open. It steps out of fifth, and the weight has to be absolutely evenly distributed over front and back. And we start doing things like pliés, which are bending of the knees. And if you start to go down, I'm okay with the demi, which is a little plié in all these positions. But a grand plié is where you go all the way down and your heels come off the ground. And you've really got to be able to keep your weight lifted. And it's not a simple maneuver to do. In fourth position, there are many of us. Are you familiar with the I-ADAMS group, the International Association of Dance, Medicine, and Science? It's the premier group for dance science in the country. It is international, but in this country, they have annual meetings. I've been to several, and I know many of the people, Cornelia, and a lot of the people in PT here are familiar with it. But one year we were at the Cleveland Clinic for a meeting, and there were a group of educators and scientists, and we're actually in the cocktail lounge after the meeting, and we were talking about fourth position. And I said, you know, I really don't teach a grand plie. That's the deep plie. I don't teach it in fourth anymore. I just think it's dangerous for the knee of the rear leg. And then other people were jumping on board. Yeah, I don't either. I don't like it. So we sort of have started, and this is the way things happen in dance. You start these little movements under the radar. So there are many dance teachers and many researchers who are not supporting grand plie in fourth. Why do we keep it in, you know, just because it came out of the 1700s, Louis XIV, should we just get rid of it? Well, a demi-plie in fourth is a preparation to go up for a pirouette or for a turn. So we need a demi, we need a little one, but, so I've told my students, I said, just saying, because teachers will give the grand plie in their classes. I just say, I wouldn't do it. What are they going to do to you? Just do a demi. Don't do the whole thing. So I think that's the way things change in dance. We don't have an accreditation society, like even I think aerobics does, or fitness, and sports medicine, you know, all these things, but there's not. So there's so many poorly qualified teachers out there teaching wrong things. So that's the reason I think we have so many things happening. So here's the plie I was talking about. It's just simply bending of the knees. And if the important thing to remember, if you're asking a dancer to demonstrate, is that the hip, knee, and feet stay in alignment. So the knees are not rolling in, or the feet are not turning out more than the hip. And the turnout is initiated at the hip. The knee follows. So this would be the equivalent of my turnout today. So I could probably get my feet a little further, but my hips and knees are certainly not following along with that. So most dancers know that, but they all tweak it. They will tweak it. And here's my message. Avoid it. Dangerous. So, another one of my slogans. Dancers are so disciplined. Our BFA dancers are dancing 5 days a week. You remember how hot it was in the fall when we came back to school? You know, it was like, so here these kids come to USC. They're dancing from 8 in the morning with a 2-hour break for class and lunch until 5 days a week. And they were doing drills, and see what they did on the weekends. The majority of them went to class outside of here. And I'm like, why would you go to class? You know, what about taking a rest day? What about going for a swim? What about just going for a walk, taking some time away? But that's the kind of discipline. It's dangerously discipline. It's the overkill. And they're afraid that someone will step ahead of them. That's, if they don't go to more classes or dance more than anyone else, they're not going to get the premier roles. So there's that mindset. So it's really, this is who we're dealing with here. Overtraining. The majority of dance injuries that we were seeing over at Cedars were from overuse and overtraining. I tried to introduce periodization, and I know for a fact, because I was a dancer, it's been my life, it is the way athletes train, building, maintaining, tapering. Makes sense. Thank you, Doc Consul, right? You know, he set it up, and the athletes prove it to be successful in performance. The dancers they're okay with the building. They get to that plateau, and it's the maintenance where they start to keep going up. And taper, they just don't understand. What does that mean? And I have to explain. That means before the show, we have to do less. Because in dance, it's the exact opposite. If we're doing a show, let's say we're going to do a show next Saturday, a week from this Saturday. We'll move into the theater. We'll go into the theater this weekend. We will up our rehearsal schedule. We will rehearse more hours in the theater than we have been doing at the beginning. So it's totally off balance. The night before the show, almost every company that I've ever worked with, you usually do 2 full dress rehearsals of the show. So if your show is 2 hours, you're going all out in full costume for 4 hours. I mean, your 2-hour show, do it twice, 4 hours, and the next day the show opens. And I began to track it at USC with the rep company. The majority of problems I had were opening night. Because if they weren't exhausted and tired and near the brink of injury, they were mentally over the threshold of arousal that they had just peaked over. And they were completely flat the night of the performance. But getting a dancer to taper, to really maximize the rest aspect of rehearsal time is very, very difficult. Dancers will be in denial and ignore the problem. Oh, the self-treatment. You know, I've given the lecture about I don't want to see ace bandages in here, and they come in with, you know, they're wrapped around and they're loose, and if they're on their foot, they're going to cause blisters because they don't know what they're doing. trying to wrap it. Well, my ankle's sore, so I put this bandage on it. I'm like, take it off. Just take it off. I don't know how to wrap it, let alone you. And then the most common thing you hear from a dancer is, and this is where it's the job of the teachers themselves. My teacher said that I've got a torn meniscus. And then I say, is your teacher a medical doctor? Oh, no. Well, then don't believe a word of it. You've got, so teachers in dance, believe me, are at liberty somehow to give all this medical advice to their students, which I find a big part of the problem. Oh, my teacher said that I had sciatica. Is she a spine specialist? I didn't know that. So, or the other thing is peer-to-peer. Mark had that, and so now I got the same symptoms. I mean, it's worse than WebMD. It makes WebMD look like, the Mayo Clinic or something. So that self-treatment, peer-to-peer, choreographer to dancer. Show us tomorrow night. Oh, you'll be fine, Mark. You'll be fine. You just got a little sprain. We don't go shooting them up. We don't have trainers. And I'm really talking with my deans at Kaufman for our new building, and I know it won't be happening next year, but in the future, I want to have, I'm on a mission single-handedly to develop a field, just like, dance medicine, I didn't develop it, but, we're trying to promote it. Athletic medicine for dance. A trainer in the studio, just like there's a trainer at the game. Last night at basketball practice, one of the players dislocated, trainer was right there, ran out on the court. And I remember, I felt very bad for the student athlete, but I thought, gosh, if that happened in dance, we'd be calling DPS, or if it were on a weekend, it has happened. I took the student in my car to Good Samaritan Hospital. So we need athletic medicine. We also need physical therapy. We need physical therapists that would be part of our staff. Because I am sending our students over to Engelman on a regular basis, which is why I'm meeting with Dr. Sean Johnson today. Because if I ask the BFA class is 33, I ask them weekly, how many have an injury? At least 30 hands go up. And these are 17, 18-year-old people. So there's some injury that they're working with. So, but the choreographer to dancer advice is dangerous because the choreographer, especially in the professional world, has ulterior motive. I've got your name on the program, on the bill. They're paying to come and see you. You better be out there performing. So yes, dancers have worked injured. This show must go on. Tiger Balm, that's the fix-all for every dancer. You could find it in, I even found some in my drawer. I haven't used it in years. I thought, what is this? I still have it, Working through the injury is common knowledge to them. And this is, I think, where integrative medicine comes in. Because in dance medicine, when we were at Cedars, we were having annual conferences. And one year we had a panel of the doctors. I was the moderator. And these conferences were open to dancers and everyone from Southern California interested in dance. And we had chiropractors, massage therapists, acupuncturists coming there. And a chiropractor said, why don't you have a chiropractor at Cedars-Sinai Dance Medicine? And one of the doctors said, I've nothing against, we just don't have it here. So there's nothing wrong with these therapies. And now that we're talking integrative medicine, they can, I think, be worked in, but we need to know who these people are, what they're doing, and how they're treating. So dancers will go. I had one of my dancers, the BFAs, I was trying to send him to Engelman to see Dr. Gamran, and he said, I'm going to see my chiropractor. It was his choice. Some of the young 17-year-old BFA dancer wanted me to have massage therapy in our class, and I said, I'm not, that's not, we're doing dance science, we're not doing massage therapy. So I just talked too much. So this is how we all, I think, can factor into it together, because it certainly is a team approach. And I want to talk, it's just about out of time. I've already mentioned about the periodization. Oh, and that's the repetition. We do the same choreography over and over and over again. So there's an asymmetry to what we do. It's the same thing, and you do it, you know. And one of the doctors at Cedars, we went to rehearsal, and he asked the dancers, why do you keep doing that? You know, because it was done beautifully, but they did it about 10 times that night, the same number. I just want to make sure it's perfect. And yes, cognitively, yes, you know, 10,000 repetitions, you want it to be second nature and all that. But to go all out and all that, so that really helps to promote this overtraining on it. Coming back too soon. As healthcare professionals, I wish, and I can't tell anybody what to do, but I tell if the doctor or the therapist says, I want you to rest, you'll be back in 3 weeks. I tell the dancers, let's take an extra week. Because what you have to realize when you're treating a dancer, they come back full speed, and then they often re-injure. These are just some of the questions the therapists have come up with. I want to talk, before I finish, about the infectious diseases and dance's dirty little secret. So, because I know you're dying to hear about it. We had a dancer, and I'll finish with this story because it's another thing. I have my little Petri dishes, and I was going to go undercover to every dance studio in the city and just swab the floor. You don't want to know. We don't want to know what's on the, even in our studio. It's poop. And because most of the dance work now is on the floor. You know, they go to the floor. They transition to the floor. Sweaty bodies, you know, throughout the day. You can't keep the floor clean enough. When I was directing the program, I wanted facilities to come in and mop between, but the floor wouldn't dry. I had a dry mop, but that's not getting all bacteria off. But we had a dancer, and this is what made me, it's a separate talk, I'll come back another time, but Dance's Dirty Little Secret started with a dancer who came in. She had made an appointment for a knee injury because she was doing floor work at a very prominent studio, professional studio in LA. And she cut her leg and she hurt her knee, and she had made an appointment with one of the knee specialists. And the appointment was to have been like on Monday. She was injured on Thursday. Saturday, her boyfriend had to carry her into urgent care because she had spiked a fever and was very, very ill. And what they found was that she had acquired a serious staph infection that she had picked up from the open wound on the floor. And, I mean, it used to be just plantar warts, really. Plantar warts is like the most common thing. So it is something that we have to address. I walk in the studio, I'm there today at 3:30, so by the time I get in the studio, it's pretty rank, you know, and I make sure that we have, if we're using mats, if we're doing anything, I'm doing conditioning and things, so we're using mats, but those mats are sanitized. We do the best we can, but why I asked the dancer about this particular facility, how could the floor be so filthy that she got, and it took 2 doses of antibiotics and she was hospitalized for the infection. It was so bad. And what they do, they rent the space out. So I'm going to rent the space for the evening. I'm going to pay $200 for my company to rehearse. I'm responsible. If I think the floor is dirty, I'll mop it or have it mopped. But then I've got to wait for it to dry. So you're eating into your own time and money. So that's where they do it. And so there's just such an education that I think we all have. I do think, and I'm going to conclude by saying, I think the dance world is ready, and they're just primed for integrative medicine. I think that they are the target population that will really, really buy into this alternative training where you can have, you know, medical doctor diagnosis, and then this is what the treatment options are. And so I'm sorry I don't have time for Q&A. My email is just margo@usc.edu. And I thank you all so much. I'm sorry I talked too much, but thank you.